This is going to be a When Karmics Attack Divine Partnership Coaching video. So welcome. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. It does add your energy to the collective that I'm able to read for and coach. And today what I wanted to talk about, I'm not sure what I'll title this one yet. Sometimes it doesn't come through until the end of the video. But I want to talk about when somebody is triggering you to manipulate you. And they could do this by belittling you, ridiculing you, crying like crocodile tears, um, using like ADHD or brain damage or physical problems or, oh, I had a shitty childhood, like whatever excuses that they might throw in there to elicit a response of making you feel shameful for, like, say, just having a healthy boundary. Like, hey, I really need some space and time to myself sometimes, or I want to be able to have whatever friends that I want to have and I want to help you feel secure, but I'm not going to just stop seeing everybody or talking to everybody just because you are not feeling secure, or you need to stop spending so much money, or you're not going to be able to afford it, we're going to lose the place, or, whatever things like, or maybe they're being like a bully and being a jerk, and you say, hey, that's not acceptable, and then they go to a victim place, or they, they might even go, they might say something that they know will absolutely trigger you, if they're being boisterous or belligerent in some way, even while sober, and you say, hey, that's not okay, don't talk to me like that, and they might tell you that you're a coward or a wuss, or that you don't deserve to be treated that way. Or even sometimes some karmics will wrap you up in they'll triangulate, they'll get their children and your friends and their friends to make you feel really small as a person and continue to trigger you. Now, here's the thing. If somebody is doing that, actually, I just had the thought. Another one is accusing you of being a toxic person, which, if you're a good person, that can often trigger you. That's one of my main triggers. My DM will still try that every once in a while, is that, just to accuse my good boundaries of being controlling, even when they're not. Even when I've done my work, I've gone through and checked with mental health professionals and other healthy people and done all that. It's funny, actually. The more reasonable it is, the more reasonable I am, because we have a co-parenting dynamic, the more likely it is that he or she will try to accuse me of being controlling while the wind is really picking up in that moment, right? These kinds of videos, as another reader said, there's a lot of karmic energy in the air that does not want people to continue healing. And whether it's tarot readings or channeled readings or things like that, there's a lot of noise and a lot of stuff coming up. But I'll do a different video about that. I think that's part of the Cardinal Grand Cross clash of the Titans going on. In any case, the best thing that I can say when a karmic attacks in this way is to remember that what they're doing is triggering you, because if they can get you emotional, they can manipulate you very easily. And I mean, a fair amount of them don't realize it. I don't like to assume that even if somebody is being really toxic, and even if they are doing it on purpose, they don't often have the empathy to understand what they are doing, or they're justifying that it's okay because they were hurt by people in the past when they were the innocents. And I mean, that's not okay, but it's part of the human condition sometimes, and we've all been in that place, and I'm working forward from that. But these videos are intended to help when you find yourself either with a karmic or with a twin flame who is with a karmic who's being this way. Like, I've actually talked to a fair amount of other divine femmes too, who have noticed a strangeness, a pattern that people, especially their twin, if they get into a third party situation, which doesn't have to be like a romantic relationship, it could be with friends or exes or parents or family or whatever, like they might be a completely different person when they have interacted around that karmic energy than they are when they are with you and have been with you for a while or been alone with you for a while. And a lot of the reason for that is because they're very empathic, but divine masculines, especially, part of their karmic learning lessons is to be able to stand in their own and to stand in both masculine and feminine energy and love themselves enough to not be manipulated into giving up their ground or their good boundaries or being healthy or staying connected with their families just because they're being made to feel like a jerk for having boundaries or for having a life or for wanting to not be treated like shit. Um, but the best thing that I can say from personal experience and from being blessed enough to be able to help others on their journeys is to remember that the best thing you can do with somebody who is trying to trigger you is remember that the whole goal is to trigger you. Because once you get triggered, all it takes is, I mean, if you're a good person, it doesn't take much for you to just say, I throw my hands up, I'm done. And who's to say that isn't the right thing to do? But if what you wanted was to be able to make progress, if you wanted to feel good interaction, have a win-win, have a healthy conversation, that's not going to help either. And I know a lot of divine feminines both have this happen from their divine masculines, and they do this to their divine masculines. They will kind of continue to string along the connection by not facing something, by going into these old shame cycles, and a lot of times it's because they are connected with, that's weird, they are connected with karmic persons, whether partners or not, who keep them in that energy. And then they're much more likely to react that way with the people that they know are more likely to actually forgive them later and recognize their humanness, which is usually their divine feminine or divine masculine. Um, but the best thing to do is to just look at it anytime you get triggered. I don't care if it's a stranger on the sidewalk. I got triggered the other day by a security guard in a parking lot who, oh, hang on a second. Sorry about that. I had my laptop plugged into the car, and I love my divine masculine. As much of a big brat and baby he can be sometimes, he set up a power inverter in the vehicle that I drive that he gave to me, that has a, I can plug my stuff into it. It was actually for the kids originally, but he left it in there and helps maintain it so that I can use it for stuff like this. But unfortunately, I've been having problems with the battery again, which actually it makes sense because of the Uranus retrograde to me, but it's not been wanting to go for as long, so I will probably shorten this video so that I don't run out of battery and leave you cut off halfway through it. In any case, yeah, if somebody's trying to trigger you, the first thing you have to recognize is how easily you are manipulated when you are triggered. And this doesn't, I don't care if it's a stranger on the side of the street, I don't care if it's your own children, your romantic partner, whoever it is. And it doesn't matter whether they're doing it on purpose or just repeating their own toxic cycle. Either way, you're not going to help them, and you're not going to help yourself, and nothing is going to change. It's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse until you can learn to be self-possessed and self-validating, self-referencing, and self-loving enough. Notice there's a lot of self in that. I'm not saying, in none of this am I saying you need to talk to them better, or you need to learn how to speak their language, or you need to learn how to have a better clap back for this answer or that answer. No. Self. Go back to self. When you are triggered, that's what I was saying. I was triggered by a security guard who, it's his job to make sure people aren't loitering, and I was simply hanging out watching YouTube videos, didn't even think about it. Time had passed, and I've had one interaction with him before, and both times it's like, goodness sakes, like the amount of aggression that comes off of him in just simply saying, hey, you gotta go. No, it wasn't just, hey, you can't sit here. It was like, you can't be here. I gave you the first 15 minutes of a what is it, like, time to leave. I gave you the benefit of the doubt. Then you gotta go. You can't sit here. It's loitering. You only have 10 minutes to be able to sit here. You've been here 30 minutes. And it's like, wow, like, goodness sakes, I know that I did not cause you to be that angry. I know I'm not doing anything in here, and even at the, even, okay, sure, I'm loitering, but I am not of any threat or any problem. I purchased food to eat from a local place, and like I'm well within being just fine where I am. But it was triggering to be faced with somebody who is that upset with me when I know I really didn't do anything that wrong. But now when I had my first interaction with him, like that hurt. It was really like, how are you going to be like that to me? Like, really? And what kind of life do you have if you're working a job like that, that you're aggressive to people? Like, if they're being aggressive with you or combative, sure. Even a first response I can understand, because you're probably used to other people being a jerk to you when you say, hey, you gotta go. I didn't respond that way at all. In fact, he kept the conversation going, and I still just, I mean, I almost got to the point of being like, wow, I pity your life if you are that angry with everybody you come across. I get that this is your job, but why? It's not necessary. Give people the benefit of the doubt that most people aren't trying to piss you off. But that's what I mean, though. And the irony is, people who are in that state are that's the kind of state that karmics will try to get you into. And a karmic can be something as simple as somebody you interact with maybe only once or twice in your life, or it could be somebody that picks at you every single day. And it's not always even a bad person. Sometimes a karmic is somebody who messes with you by bringing in good and positive emotions, to elicit a response from you. They might love bomb you, or do things like that to try to get you in the opposite direction. But for the purposes of this video, the pattern you want to look for is that often they will get you in that state, and then when they realize that there's like a peak to it, or when they don't feel it's extreme enough, because a lot of them have attachment traumas that they feel they need to be in an extreme all the time, either extreme fighting or extreme love bombing. And they will get you buttered up, and then they will do something either intentionally or subconsciously to trigger you until you're upset and you don't want to do anything and you don't want to go anywhere and you'd rather just not have the fight, and you're feeling heartbroken because you really want a win-win and you would like to be able to just say, I don't have feelings, I don't need things, I'll just put myself last and do what they want because I just want to make them happy. But you can't, because it's not just about doing what they want. If they're breaking your boundaries and you're not even safe to be able to have like a fight that gets to resolution, you're not happy. You're not going to be happy. It's not going to last. Like, and the longer it lasts, the more defeated you get until they discard you anyways, which really, like, that's heartbreaking too. And a lot of them will do it that in cycles, like bringing in other people, to try to pull you back and forth with that. um, so the best thing you can do, whether it's a stranger on the street or a romantic partner or even your twin flame, is to go back to self. Okay, so let's take Mr. Nighttime Security, right? When I first interacted with him, yeah, I was upset. It was not a nice interaction. It didn't feel necessary for the level of crime, quote unquote, being committed. But this time going around, like, I felt the trigger, the initial trigger. But I also recognized that that was more to do with my spiritual journey of choosing to heal and not be so easily rattled by things that catch me off guard, because it's disorienting when you weren't expecting for something to happen. And my own journey in particular, I'm learning to work with releasing control. And so I've had a cycle in the past of getting very anxious and wanting to figure out how to plan out each interaction. If they say this, I'll say that. If they do this, I'll do that. If I do this and then they do that, I can do this. But if they do this, I can do that. And if I didn't have all of my plans in order, I felt uncomfortable and chaotic, and I could become a bully and be very karmic in my own way. And over the last 9 months, I've gotten much better about actually looking at everything as a small step. Like the things that don't, like, if it goes well and it goes the way that I'd like it to, it's a wonderful bonus, and it's a big step. Like, that makes it a big step, and I like looking at it that way. Even if it's a normal thing that should have happened in the beginning, I like looking at it that way. And then everything else is either a learning lesson for me, an opportunity for healing, or a chance to reaffirm what I know to be true in my intellect, in my intuition, in my instincts, all of it. So like, and learning to base my self-worth more on my relationship with spirit and myself than my twin or my friends or things like that. And it hasn't been easy. I'm not, that's a process, and that's part of why I'm trying to make videos like this, to help others who, in ways that it would be nice if I would have had that help. um, but the more that I do that, and the more that I confirm for myself that I'm not as reactive, the better I feel about it. And the funny thing is like, even like with my DM, like say he gets to calling me controlling, like I don't like that, because I have had a history of being controlling in my past, especially before him, and there were plenty of times he could say that and it would completely throw me off my game, and then I would be controlling. And then I would hate myself because I was being what he originally accused me of, even if it was valid in my reaction because he triggered me in that way. But now, when it comes up, I recognize it for what it is. One, it's more of a deflection. Two, it's really not about me. Like it's more of a projection. It's more about, he's feeling like his world is out of control when he's doing that. He's feeling controlled by the karmics around him. He's worried that I am no different and confused because he sees that I am very different. Um, I don't react the same way. That, yeah, I may share some of the same thoughts, but I don't act on them. I control myself. I have emotional discipline. And the more time goes on, the less reactive I get to the same old tactics, which actually changes everything. And not even with an intention to change anything other than healing myself. But that, I mean, it's funny. Spirits told me a bunch that part of my mission is to be an example for, well, for my kids first, and then for my DM, and even for his karmic, and for people who want to watch these videos and things like that. And I think I'm a pretty imperfectly perfect example because I am human. I don't always have nice hair. I don't, I smoke cigarettes in my videos. I'm not perfect. I have flaws and quirks and things like that. But I keep working on me. And I work on kindness, and I help others decide on that. And I don't belittle somebody for having their beliefs, even if I know that they're more creating obstacles for them, or that they're not logical, or if they don't resonate with what I know to be true. I don't see any reason to belittle somebody on it. What good does that do? But I wouldn't be able to be in that place. I wouldn't have felt the self-worth to be able to say that about myself if I had not been triggered so many times, by my DM, by his karmic, by my karmics, by friends, family, strangers, and interactions, right? If I hadn't been in those, and you decided consciously when I felt the trigger, like after that initial like rawr in my head, which started out to be like a long thing. I could be totally triggered and end up staying triggered for days. Shoot, when my DM and I were in the height of fighting, when he was already getting wrapped up with the karmics before I called for separation, I could be in that state of triggered for like up to a week. It was really bad. And part of learning to have healthy boundaries and to heal the codependent aspect of it included deciding to care more about me and the way that I feel, and deciding to give meaning to things in a way that resonates with me, with my core values, with my heart, with my inner being. And the more that I've done that, the more calm I have become, the more I have realized, like, I don't need to be an aggressive knight in shining armor riding in to rescue my divine masculine or others. And I don't have to worry about being an imperfect parent. I don't have to worry about some time passing between my DM and our kids seeing each other. I don't have to worry about the moments where there isn't a lot of money, or or there is. Like, I can just take each moment for each moment. And I've seen enough, I've learned enough communication with the universe to recognize when, to be able to discern when something is just a happenstance versus when it is a communication and usually an affirmation of something that I'm wondering about in our connection. And the more emotionally secure I become in that way, the less easy it is to manipulate me or to get me to play into the games going on with them. And that's kind of the main thing, is like when a karmic attacks in this way, whether it's through your twin flame or even just memories of karmics that your twin flame is replaying from their childhood or something like that, or if you're in a third party karmic situation, or family, friends, neighbors, whoever it is that's triggering you. Could even be like the news. It could be, maybe look at the political stuff, that totally triggers you. But that's how, in fact, that's a perfect example. Like Chump and all that stuff going on, a lot of that is about triggering people, just getting them triggered. One of my favorite articles early on that a lot of people would not listen to is looking at like the whole race between Clinton and Trump, and all of that was about triggering people, even allowing like libertarians and third parties to come in and have a bigger say was actually meant to trigger the wider, I was going to say plebes, but that's not the right thing. Um, Wider society, the mob mentality to say, oh, well, then you're vote stealing, which actually isn't true. That's gaslighting. It's not vote stealing. Like, we all should be able to vote for who we feel most pulled towards. And I mean, that's how democracy works. And that's how democracy works. Um, and to gaslight anybody into believing that they're who they want to vote for is absolutely crazy making, and it's meant to trigger everybody. And they used that. The article even talked about it. Like, they used that, and then they ditched Bernie and they allowed Trump to win, and they had all these court cases going out, and they got people to protest and do all this stuff. And then basically they were trying to effectively cause adrenal failure and compassion fatigue, which they have very much achieved. And then it was not hard to implement C-19 and to go from there. Now a whole bunch of people are sick, they're worried, very compliant. They don't need, like, what do they need martial law for? And all you got to do is trigger people, because people are super easy to manipulate when they're triggered. And now we have pretty much everybody fighting with everybody. Like, and with the elements in the astrology right now, it actually makes sense. We've kind of that clash of the Titans alignment going on. But I digress. I just like using that word. The best thing you can do when you find yourself constantly being triggered by anybody is to look at what you need to do to be self-validating. Like, if you know that, I guess, I'm going to speak to this more to divine masculines. Like, if you know that your karmic is lying to you, and manipulating the situation, and you go to call them out on it, and they use some sort of tactics to belittle you or ridicule you, or piss you off, they're doing that to be able to get out of the accountability, to be able to keep the cycle going longer. The same thing with using money and hiding it, or bringing in somebody else to say, oh, I'm busy with them, or oh, I'm so tired, I can't do anything. There's all sorts of tactics that they can and will use. It is to trigger you and keep you there. And Spirit is using them to help you learn to stand up for yourself. But everybody thinks that standing up for yourself is like bossing up, stand up and F you and you're cool and F you and I quit. That's not always what it looks like. And in a toxic dynamic, what it actually looks like is your feelings are valid and so are mine. And I am still not going to do what you want me to do, because those are my boundaries and they are here because of this very interaction, which I'm not going to explain to you. I'm not going to argue with you about it. If you're feeling emotional, that is totally fine. I am not going to invalidate emotions, but I am also not going to hold space for this, because I care about how I feel and I don't want to go to that place. I don't want to be triggered. And I am in control of myself. So you cannot make me get triggered. Yell if you like, cry if you like. When it's done and it's over, if you want to discuss a healthy way for us to be able to proceed forward so that my boundaries can be more flexible, I'm open to it. And when I feel safe and comfortable and like it's actually going to be consistent, then I will be more flexible in my boundaries, as is healthy to do with boundaries. But even that, to a degree, especially if you're with a particularly tough karmic or you have been this way yourself with somebody else or with your divine feminine, that's not always going to work, trying to be rational and healthy and logical with them. Sometimes you just simply have to say, I can see that you're feeling emotional right now. I'm going to go for a drive. I'll talk to you later. Or I'm going to go into my room and I'm going to lock the door and I'm going to enjoy some music. You're welcome to reach out when you feel better. Until then, I'm not having this interaction. Or don't even say anything. Just go take your space. And don't, the hardest thing is that they often will do things to make you feel like an incredible jerk. Like you're so mean to me, or you don't understand, or especially if bullying you doesn't work, which bullying only works for so long. Even somebody who is very masochistic isn't going to accept that. They're not going to accept that forever. It is going to eat at them, and eventually they're going to say, oh, I'm not going to play anymore. But the way to keep the cycle going is the bullying and then the crocodile tears, the bullying and the crocodile tears. And if they can access your shame cycles and you don't work to heal them, they can use that for as long as they want until they're done with you. And most of the time, karmics that are doing that, the minute like they're energy vampires. They're going to wear you down until you don't have any money and you probably don't have any friends and you don't really have much joie de vivre in you. I think I said that right. Like, the spark of life in there. And then they're going to leave you anyways because they weren't with you because they wanted you. They were with you because they either associated you as some source of external validation, or they wanted the money, or they didn't have the capability to have a healthy, loving relationship, and neither did you. So spirit brought you two together to be able to learn that. So just giving in is not going to make it better. In fact, it will make it worse. They will see what they can do with this cycle, and they will continue to do it more and more and more and more. So when you get triggered, this is for everybody, don't, allow yourself to have human emotions, and say fuck this and fuck them and blah blah blah, but then calm down. And this will get easier to do more instantly over time, so give yourself grace when it's a little more difficult in the beginning. It's okay. But work on looking at, okay, why am I so triggered by this? Emotional security is not taking so many things personally, not being easily manipulated, not feeling like not having savior syndrome all the time, things like that. Like, work on that. Look at that. Look at how the trigger reflects you. And are you trying to trigger someone else? Are you trying to be controlling? Are you trying to have it your way or have your cake and eat it too? Or are you not being empathetic when you don't know all of the details? Are you putting too much of a high priority on a very small space of time? Like, even a year is really not that much time in a lifetime. Yes, a lot can happen in a year, but it's really not that much time. Neither is a day or a week or a month, but it's really easy, and I know this for personal experience, to make it feel like it is a lot. And that can be triggering on its own. Are you doing that? Are you feeling impatient? Are you seeing the temperance card a lot? And that's really like grating at you, like, why do I have to wait this long? Or do you go to a pity place? Do you feel like you don't deserve it to have it better? Do you feel like even though you hate it, you're staying because you invested in it or because you told people that it was good and happy and you don't want to admit that it's not? Um, you know, look at it. Look at it. Where are you not loving yourself first in healthy ways? And where are you allowing people to break your boundaries? Where are you giving in when you should be standing firm, being assertive, pulling away? There. Look at how you can heal yourself in those moments. And the more you do that, somebody who's just karmic, they'll go away very quickly on their own. Yeah, they might be a little dramatic. They might make a dramatic exit from your life, but then they'll be gone. Because if you're not easily manipulated, what use do they have for you, right? Anyways, we're hit the 30-minute mark, so I'm going to go ahead and end this here. So thank you so much for watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, and just being so amazing. I'm proud of you for working on you and watching videos like mine and others and changing the whole nature of the universe just in taking those steps. You got this, and I'll see you in the next video.